Today I'm going to talk about how my face changed or seemed to change um, as I grew mentally over the years. So the picture that you see is when I was 19, and that was, during and the end of high school. And then that was, because I'm 24 now, so that was about 5 years ago. And over the last 5 years, more specifically the last 2 or 3, I've noticed a big change, looking back through my pictures and whatnot of how I used to look and how I look now. And I've noticed that there have been a few changes to just my overall appearance. And my theory, besides, age or diet or anything physical, is I think that, I changed a lot over the last few years, and that kind of matches how I've changed physically. When I was in high school, I was very not myself. I didn't really have, I kind of suppressed my own ability to distinguish using my own opinion to find what I like, between whether it's music or fashion or anything like movies or anything, like everything that I based my or even like how I acted or everything. It was all based on the people around me at school, and I didn't really, I think that I was very underdeveloped because I was not looking at things in my own lens. I was looking at it through what I observed other people to like and not like. So I think because of that, to me, looking at myself back then, I look kind of just underdeveloped. And even though I'm technically an adult, 19, 20, because I didn't immediately look different. I kind of looked like that when I was 22, as when I was 20 as well. If a late teen entering adulthood, usually your looks are kind of solidified, at least more so than mine seemed to be. But I think that maybe because I was just underdeveloped, I had like another growth spurt or something, in terms of my features specifically, which is really interesting. And I don't know, I think that what changed mentally, well, what changed is I experienced life, and I made a decision to myself that I was going to start experiencing things on my own for myself and trying new things and having more experiences and taking more risk. And because of that, I developed more of my own opinion. And after leaving school and not being in school anymore, I was more on my own, and I distanced myself from that environment where I had developed that bad habit of not thinking for myself. And when I look at myself now versus myself back then, myself back then to me looks kind of like a deer in headlights almost, where I don't really have, I mean, it completely reflects how I was, where I didn't know anything, and there was not really much going on. There was a lot of, during that time I was very into like philosophy and esoteric things, but that was, I think maybe, I don't know, I think that the overarching theme of my life was just following other people. And so even though I was like looking into different things that were more individual on my own time, my thoughts and my attention was on things that were not what I was interested in, if that makes sense. And I kind of want to use myself as a case study. If anyone sees what I see in the difference and is interested in the physical changes that developing mentally might have, like that, I want to be a case study for that, because like I said, it's not like I had an actual growth spurt. I didn't grow taller or wider or anything. My features changed. And I think that, I think it's called physiognomy, but it's like the study of the face and how the face can reflect your personality. And my personality has definitely changed over the course of the past 4 or 5 years. I've become a lot more independent, a lot more independent thinking, more skeptical, more observant, more, I guess those are the more negative, you could call that negative. I don't see that as negative, but on the more positive side, I've just become, I know what I want, and I know what I like, and I know what interests me, and it's not at all what I used to be concerning myself with. It's, I don't listen to the music I used to listen to anymore. I don't wear the clothes I used to wear anymore. I don't have the same haircut as I used to. Everything has changed, and it's more aligned with how I feel. And I feel like, in my opinion, my face has kind of molded into that. It's kind of set into who I really am, if that makes sense. If I look at myself as a child, when I went through puberty, which is ironically, when I got into high school, my face changed a lot, and it changed into, kind of a different person almost, compared to how I used to look when I was a child, a baby and a child growing up. Ironically, now I look more like I was when I was a child than I was when I was in high school, when I was younger. Now that I'm 24, I personally think that I look more naturally like the person, the child that I used to be, just grown up more, obviously, more developed. Yeah, and I honestly, I do think that, when you go on a different path, your features change, and, you kind of get molded into a different person, mentally and physically. Your physical state can reflect that change. So I would say that you should be careful what you're concerning your focus with. What are you focusing on? Are you focusing on things that you care about and you enjoy, or are you focusing on things that other people care about? Because you might actually end up being a different person all around if you're not careful, and it might sway different. It might veer off a path that you could have taken that was more attuned with yourself. And I do think that, I'm very grateful that I was able to go back onto my own path and return to who I truly am. It's just very interesting to look back on those pictures and see how, I used to act and used to be and used to think and used to feel. I would say music is really powerful, both good and bad, because I choose not to listen to. I don't want to, but I don't want to because I don't like the music that I used to listen to, but I certainly don't want to listen to that music because it brings back like emotions that I used to feel, and it almost brings me back to that time, and it's uncomfortable, because I didn't like that time. So I would say, as a little side note, I think that music is extremely powerful, and what you listen to, if you have a history with what you listen to, I would just watch that and just see if you have loops of habit, loops of character that you don't like but you feel stuck in. If you listen to the same music that you've always been listening to, I know that's a very small thing. It doesn't change everything, but I would just say maybe try listening to different music just to start with. Try switching it up, because I think music really brings out memories, whether they're good or bad. Emotional memories, whether it's picture memories in your mind or emotional, like you feel it. And if you're trying to get out of a rut, or you're trying to change as a person, if you're listening to the same music that you've always been listening to when you got into that rut, that might not be good for you. So, yeah. But I think for me, separating myself from, people that weren't really serving me in any good way, separating myself from people that I was definitely like, I was the one that was reaching out and doing all the work for. There's a lot of those people, in school and other situations where you're with people that you're not with because you naturally met them. You're with them because you were forced to be with them. I've talked about this before. High school people are just random people, okay? If you're in high school, or if you're in college or elementary school, like any type of school, you need to understand that the people that you're around, the kids that you're around, the students, they're just your acquaintances, unless you have a true connection with them, that therefore then they can be your friend. Because at the end of the day, just sharing classes or just sharing school memories with someone does not make them compatible with you. And I think that's how a lot of unhealthy relationships start in people's lives, is from school. Because a lot of relationships that were kind of forced onto each other by circumstances and not by natural occurrences. Yeah, so I would I always want to advocate to not hold on to relationships just because you went to school with someone. That does not mean anything at all. Honestly, it means nothing. Yeah. I would love to hear if anyone has experienced something similar to me. If you've gone through something on your own, like if you've gone through a life experience or something that happened to you and it changed you as a person. If you notice anything different about your physical appearance, I would like to hear your story, because this is something that interests me, because I believe it happened to me, and I think it's a very interesting phenomenon, and it kind of shows how powerful the mind is. If your mind is a certain way, it's going to shape everything around the mind, right? So, yeah.